Welcome to this new edition of the AMS Impact Webinars. Great to have you with us, whether you're joining live or watching the replay later. Today we're tackling a topic that is quietly transforming boardrooms everywhere: the role of digital technology in corporate governance. Because, let's face it, you can no longer talk about business strategy or risk management without talking about technology. But strangely enough, there's an imminent paradox. While technology shapes nearly every decision, many boards still treat it as an operational concern, something left to the IT department, and not as a part of a strategic discussion. So the real question at hand is the following: how can boards and executive teams steer technology in a way that creates real value without needing to become technical experts? To explore this question, I'm joined by three excellent guests. Professor Dr. Steven de Haes is Dean of Antwerp Management School and one of Europe's foremost authorities on IT governance and digital leadership. Daniel Jacobs is CEO of Beltug, the Belgian Association of CIOs and Digital Technology Leaders, representing over 3,000 members from more than 530 organizations. She brings the collective voice of business IT users to the table, connecting CIOs and boards and translating technical realities into strategic decisions. Tim van Daal is Group Manager of the EU Infrastructure Team at Komatsu and proud AMS alumnus. He brings a sharp practitioner's view from inside a global industrial company navigating digital transformation. So Steven, Daniel, Tim, welcome to you three. As for you at home, join in the conversation, send us your questions in the chat. Later on, we will tackle them during our Q&A. Steven, let me start with you because you say you can't lead strategy or risk without technology. What do you mean by that?
Thank you. Well, the topic of the webinar is IT governance in the boardroom. So I think we have to address that question from I would say, corporate governance perspective. And if you look at corporate governance, then you could say that board members have two main accountabilities as a board member. One being you have to set a strategy for the organization, and the other one being you have to be in control over the organization. Mm-hmm. And if you look at those two themes that a board member should have in the context of corporate governance, strategy setting and being in control, the question for the webinar is, can you address these two governance accountabilities without considering technology in the conversation? Mm-hmm. Can you think about strategy without considering what the potential impact could be of technologies, disruptive technologies, AI, on your competitive landscape? I think the answer is no, you can't. And the other question, can you be in control over the risks of a company without considering technology? There the same question I think is clear, or the answer is clear. If you look at the current value chain of organizations, these are typically fully embedded in technology. So talking about risks and being in control without considering technology does not make any sense.
Yeah.
So if you look from a corporate governance lens to this conversation, you cannot talk about business strategies or business risks without considering technology. So It should be on the board's agenda.
Yeah, so the question is very clear. The answer is clear as well. But you talk about the elephant in the boardroom.
Yeah, indeed, that's the paradox. Although from a, let's call it, theoretical lens, it makes a lot of sense that boards need to engage in technology. But in practice, what we then observe on the other side, there are quite some research papers also from my research group on this domain. There we see that many board members still look at technology as a cost, an afterthought, something operational. And that's why we call it the elephant in the boardroom.
Yeah, because what has changed in the past decade that it becomes so relevant, this discussion?
Oh, well, I'm not sure it's just the past decade. I think it's already longer, over a longer period of time that this should be on the board agenda. But of course, the past 5 to 10 years, we have things coming up such as a lot of regulations. You have DORA, you have NIS, you have privacy regulations, which also make it more prominent on the agenda. And there are new upcoming disruptive technologies such as AI these days, which make it very prominent. But I think the topic is not only of the past 5 or 10 years, but the past 5 or 10 years, it becomes more prominent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I turn to you, Tim, because what's the practice at Komatsu nowadays? Where is IT embedded in the structure?
Oh, IT is not part of the real boardroom. So, so our manager is a general manager, European ICT in that sense. So we are not part of or he is not part of the boardroom.
Not yet, because you are trying to change the mindset?
Yes, of course we're trying to change the mindset because, as Steven mentioned, we see the emerging technologies, everything coming our way, and everything goes so fast. So we have to adapt to it. So yes, it's a daily struggle.
Yeah, and I mentioned you're a proud AMS alumnus. What kind of education did you follow?
I followed here the executive master in IT management.
Yes, and a funny thing, because it's no longer...
No, the name changed in the meantime.
Yeah, I can spell it out. So it has always been called executive master in IT management. The challenge there is, if you phrase it like that, it looks like an IT educational program.
Yeah, and a very operational thing.
And very operational, while the whole narrative of the program is we always have to start from the business strategy and the business transformation that we seek, enabled by technology. And that's why we call it now, it's repositioned in that way as an executive master in digital leadership and transformation.
Yeah.
It's about the business and digital transformation that we would like to achieve.
Yeah, okay. Danielle, you also say that CIOs and board members, they speak different languages. Could you elaborate on that?
So I'm working for Belgium. So we are the association of the business users. So the people I'm speaking to daily are from banks, pharma, public institutions, and so on. And so what they say is, if we want to present digital to the boardroom, some just come back after 10 minutes. So the board said, you lost me, because they are too technical or too concentrated on their own perspective. So it's absolutely needed to close that bridge. And I'm very pleased because we just published our new priorities of the ICT decision makers in Belgium. And one of the top 10 priorities is how to bring digital to the boardroom. So that's why we now just worked on a kind of template companies can use, because the bridge is there and it can be really solved. Because if you just go to the board and you start from the perspective of board members, what do they need to know about not only the risks, but there are also the opportunities of the technology. It's the two sides. Then you get a complete different story and a complete different connection with the two.
And do you have some examples of companies where bridging the gap was very successful?
Well, it's difficult to call names, but we just had a meeting a couple of days ago where we discussed this topic. And some of the people said, okay, you have compliance. Compliance very difficult. And Steven also mentioned, and this too, it's a kind of security directive for major organizations in the economy. And at the beginning, it was something like, how are we ever going to explain that to the board? Because it's a legal obligation in those companies to have a training on it. And then we had some questions, some companies came in to testify. We organized an education for the board, and after they were very happy. And it was a complete surprise, but it was very well prepared. That I must say. So.
Yeah.
Can I also react on your comment? So I fully agree that the language barrier, we have to talk about the language barrier, because that's certainly there. So you say, sometimes I meet boards and they come out of the boardroom and they say, I did not understand what we were talking about. I fully agree with that, but I also advise quite some boards. What I sometimes also observe on the other side of the coin is that in the boardroom, discussions are being held about technology that no one really understands what it is about. And it's often about a lot of money, and still they approve. Because they don't dare to ask more questions, because it seems to be something very complex, a big black box. So let's assume that the CIO knows what he or she is doing. So we approve. But that's even more risky. In terms of being the board member and being in control. You should not accept that. If you don't understand the black box, then you can't make a decision.
But that is why it's so important as being CIO or CISO, because it's not always that the CIO needs to go there. To really start from what is the perspective of the board members. They need to know the large risk. They need to see the trends. What about, do we have complaints about privacy, for example? So you need to start from the business risk. And I think every company has a kind of risk matrix, not only about digital, but also for other. Just include your story in that part and not start from the technical part.
Yeah. So that's already a great advice for CIOs who have to present to the board, be well prepared, take it from their view. Tim, in your opinion, what could help to convince the board?
Digital savviness. I think it's important that the board members that they try to understand the technical details, like Steven also explained, and Danielle. It's important that they know what they are talking about. AI. I'm convinced that in a lot of boardrooms now, people really don't know what AI is or what the potential impact can be. And I think the technical expertise needs to be more present in the boardroom.
And digital savviness, all board members need to have it, or could it be shared?
It can only contribute. The more the merrier, I think. So.
And how do we? Because I'm thinking a lot of boards right now are not digital savvy. How can we move them all together to the other side?
Well, I'm not sure if they all need to be digital savvy. I think a boardroom is like the controlling unit of an organization. And I think organizations have to make sure, or boards, that within that, that's called controlling unit, there is as much expertise available as needed to manage the complexity of the company. So I think in your boardroom, you have to make sure that you have, of course, financial expertise, HR expertise, legal expertise, and digital expertise. So I'm not sure if all the members need to have that, but in the collectiveness of the board, you need to make sure that you have all the complexities in your boardroom and expertise on technology, on finance, on HR, on compliance, on regulation. So it's more a collective accountability.
So it could be shared then.
Yeah, but what I see is now that quite some companies say, okay, we need digital savviness in the board, so we are going to look for somebody with a digital background, and that's not the solution either, because it's just too much.
It's not about managing laptops or iPhones. It's much more complex.
And it cannot be concentrated in one person who then needs to take the decision or lead the decisions on everything about digital, because it's now so wide a scope. It is about dependence for geopolitical reasons on cloud providers, or it is about AI, or it is about cybersecurity. That cannot be concentrated in one person. And I'm a little bit frustrated that if you see education programs for board members, it's often about finance. Everybody is expected to understand the balance, but having the key parts, and you don't need to be a specialist, but being a little bit educated about digital is now, I think, a very important something for every board member.
Because leaders, they admit that they're a bit afraid of technology. It's one part knowledge, but also mindset, do you think?
It is mindset and culture, because it has nothing to do with small or large companies. It has nothing to do with different sectors. It is something like, if you just take now AI, it can mean so much, and it's going much further than Gen AI. I see now that feedback I'm getting is, okay, in the board they discuss AI, but then it is equal generative AI, because that's something the board members see and know. But really having strategical discussions, what can it be for our workforce? What could be the consequences? This is really very far-reaching. I do not know whether there are many boards where these kind of things are discussed.
Yeah, and at the same time, there is a risk in how you pitch the conversation. I also see that a lot of boards at this moment, of course, talk about AI. But I call these types of companies also sometimes the fashionistas, being organizations and boards that run after the next hype of the day. So I think having in the boardroom a discussion on we need to have AI is a question that is wrongly phrased. The question should be, what's the business strategy or business value that we seek through AI? But not we have to have AI because competition is having AI as well. And so that fashionista strategy is also, I think, a risk.
Being done. That's not a strategy.
Because of the lack of expertise and digital savviness as Tim referred to.
But I'm thinking that board members can think, oh, if we don't jump on the AI train, we will miss it. So we have to make quick decisions. Is that then in interference with agility, innovation, if we want to have it really IT governance and
it's good to have that conversation and to make sure that you have that you sense the market and that you feel emerging technologies, how they can impact your business strategy, but then still you have to force yourself to try to clarify what's the impact of that technology on my business strategy, what's potentially the new revenue stream or business income model, and only when you have a positive insight on that, you should jump. but only jumping on the technology because of the technology. A lot of cash has been burned in the past 20 years just because of that.
Yeah.
We call that the black hole of IT. We throw money at technology and nothing comes out of it. Well, that's because of the fact that you just follow the technology and not the business.
And
metric.
exactly the
Yeah.
reason why IT is seen as a cost.
Yeah, because you burn the money.
Yes, we burn the money.
But I'm guessing Komatsu has a different mindset because you could follow the master here. Things are changing. What?
No, but but it's great. Yeah, no, we are really willing to change the mindset. Yes, and also the reason why we have the opportunity to participate in these programs.
Okay. And as for AI in your company, do you think it's a topic that is jumped on as a hype in the board, or do they take it more seriously?
I think they take it a bit more seriously. Yes, I think what they are now trying to do is look at from the other way around. Like Steve and Danielle mentioned, is look at first from the strategy. Okay, how can it create business value? How can we make a revenue stream out of it? How can it contribute to what the business wants to do, or what we as an organization want to do? Where do we want to go to? And if that incorporates AI, for example, with that strategy, I think then it's a good decision to do it.
We're talking about board. We have different board members, but there's also the function of the president of the board. Does that change then the position and the skill set and the competences we look for in a president of a board as well? Because he or she needs to be guiding this.
Yeah, but I don't see that. I mean, I think it's the board as a collective, and they need to have the digital savviness. But I think the board needs to lead, needs to guide. So that is something I don't see really.
I agree. It's a collective, but in the end, it's the chairman who needs to make sure that the composition of his or her board is consistent with the strategy of the firm. So I think a board sets the strategy, but also sets the governance accountabilities. How is the board composed? What type of skills do we need to have in the board? A chair can also decide, okay, I look at my board, but maybe we don't have all the expertise available. Sometimes it's also not possible for a chair to change the composition of the board because of the bylaws or other things. But then he or she can still decide, let's make a supporting committee. You have remuneration committees, you have strategy committees, you have audit committees. I'm also a member of an audit committee. And in that audit committee, I'm there. I'm not in the board. I'm in the audit committee supporting the board, but I'm in the audit committee for my digital expertise, advising the audit committee and through that the board to make sure that IT-related business risks are in control. And that composition, that governance composition, is, I think, an accountability of the chairman or chairwoman.
Okay. Danielle, you already mentioned a recent survey from September, and one of the outcomes was that one of the top priorities for Belgian CIOs is bringing digital to the board. Do you see differences in large companies versus SMEs?
No, not really. I think it's more company culture. Where I see huge differences is how serious companies take digital.
Okay.
But it has nothing to do with the size. Some companies, well, it's another study, but it's not important. We asked all our members, do you have awareness on cybersecurity and on AI and so? And quite a lot of companies, and even the larger ones, so plus 200 employees and more, they just say, no, we don't have anything. And that is something that I really can't understand.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a size that's there.
And you mentioned another study, a European study that really taps into the results of what Danielle is talking about.
Well, it's a global study every year on what are the key priorities in digital, and it's not fully the same storyline that digital needs to go to the board, but the topic of alignment, how can you connect business and technology, both strategically and operationally, has been the past 20 years the top one or two priority. So that gap that we are discussing between business and technology is also revealed as the key priority.
That is something we absolutely see also, because it's not only CIO or CISO to the board, but also IT needs to talk to HR, and with the legal people, it's going in all directions because digital is everywhere. So that is something we clearly see, that people say, okay, can you organize something where you involve the HR manager, for example, on the impact of AI?
And on your question on small or big companies, I fully agree with Danielle. There's maybe another angle to take, and there is a difference between digital native companies and let's say, more incumbent or bricks and mortar companies. I think what I see in my research is that in digital native startups, that the topic is not at hand. There typically the board is, of course, digital savvy because it's a digital native startup or scale up even. But there are a lot of, certainly also in Belgium, family businesses, bricks and mortar companies that have evolved over time. Technology is impacting the business. Often they become more data-driven businesses. And if they become more data-driven, then of course the board needs to be alerted on the strategic impact and the business risks. And there often the challenges. I'm currently writing a book on a company which is a bricks and mortar company, let's call it like that, who makes steel mailboxes, and they want to move towards also offering digital mailboxes. But that implies that their business model was a bricks and mortar company, and they become a data-driven company. But that's a fundamental different way of looking at, of course, technology as well, and your whole operating models. And then the board needs to also make that shift. And I think in these types of companies, the challenge is the most.
A lot of challenges, but we already received some questions from the audience. First one, I heard you talking about bridging the gap. Do boardrooms already have a formal bridge builder member who translates the technical knowledge of IT to other members and vice versa? Maybe we already... Would you take it?
Well, I think it has two angles. I think if the CIO goes to the board, I think the CIO also needs to be a bridge builder, being he or she needs to be able to communicate in business language. So the CIO needs to come to the board, and he should not talk about technology A, B, or C, or we need to upgrade Microsoft to something else. That's tech language. He or she needs to talk business language, business strategy, business operating model. And on the other side, so I think the CIO needs to talk business language, and the board members need to be able to understand the role of technology in their business strategy to challenge the CIO. So I think the bridge building comes from two parties, the board members and the CIO.
Daya, you want to tap on?
Yes, because I completely agree. I just wanted to mention that we should not think that there are three models I see now. So you have the CIO reporting to the board, and I hope that's the second question which comes. We'll be more detail about it. But so you have the CIO, but in a lot of companies we see it's not. If it's about cybersecurity, it's not the CIO, but it's a CISO. In more and more companies, the CISO, so the person responsible for cybersecurity, is not part of IT anymore. And in lots of companies, you also have the CFO, who is having the IT. So there are different models, but I don't think there's an extra person needed. It should be that the CIO, CISO, or CFO, whoever is going to talk about IT
the language.
Needs to talk the language. That's what
because the second
important.
question you mentioned already, it's about communication. Because question is, most presentations to board members on IT are made by IT people, so they totally understand it, but it's not understandable for the boards. Too many acronyms, too much hype. So the question is, which functions are best placed inside an organization to be involved in translating the IT topics to board members? Because maybe the IT presenter is not able to do it themselves.
But when we discussed within Belgium, like how can a person as a CIO make that bridge, they say we need to do some storytelling. We cannot use all these acronyms and technical stuff. So what we need with the two things is the storytelling. And please involve somebody maybe from communications or marketing, come with figures, infographics, and so on, and apply a good structure. And it's not rocket science. It's like, what are the achievements? What are the key metrics? Did we have privacy incidents? Did the trainings that we want people to follow, were they done? Yes or no? It's really key metrics. The challenges, the next steps, and the the points for decision.
Yeah.
So it's not, if we are, well, we just made this template for our members, and when I see it, we've been working quite hard on it, but if you see the results, oh, this is logical.
Yeah.
Although when we started, we thought, how are we going to do this?
But I can imagine mentioning the word storytelling to someone from IT. They can roll their eyes like, "Oh my God, we're a serious business here. Why do we need to
We are
make stories?"
engineers.
Yeah.
But when you explain it, it's just giving the details,
And they
giving
appreciate
some metrics.
that you are taking seriously at board level. So that's the big advantage and the satisfaction part of
How would they react within your organization if we say you need to be more of a storyteller in the boardroom?
I think they would be happy, because I think it's a common mistake that the technical people always make. If we tell a story, I make the reference: the higher you go up the ladder, the bigger the block should be. But we don't need to, how should I say it, fiddle with all the details like the question here, too many acronyms. The board is not interested in that. The board, they have other priorities. They need to know how it aligns with the strategy, what the outcome, how can we measure it, and what value can it bring towards the company. And how the IT people do it in the background, they will figure it out.
I would also, in terms of the question, I would stay away from putting a person in between. That makes the translation, I think that makes it more complex. So I think the key message is the expertise of the board members should be uplifted, and the expertise of the IT people should be uplifted so that they can communicate and integrate directly with each other. No middle person. And I would like to make the parallel to the point of Tim as well. We would not make that logic to a CFO either. You expect that a good chief financial officer would go to the boardroom and that he or she talks business language. He should not open up an Excel sheet with 1,000 boxes and then start to do some magic with the Excel sheet. That's not what a CFO should do. He is a business partner and he talks business strategy and the implications towards finance. So a CIO should talk business strategy and what the implications of that are towards technology. So the same is true for the CFO or the chief HRO, or it's for all these assets in an organization, the same logic applies.
Yeah. Okay. You already mentioned something very interesting about the building blocks. Could you elaborate on this before we let it slip?
I always say it's a saying I have: the higher you go up to the chain, the bigger the block should be.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, with the question here is also when you talk to technical people, they want to understand the technology, what ports, web APIs, all the technical acronyms, they want to know all the details. I think bringing all those details to the board will just confuse them more and will give them.
So no little Lego blocks, just big building blocks.
Big blocks,
the context.
And how it's handled in the background. I'm sure that the IT people are confident enough to handle it, but that should not be the concern when a message higher up the ladder is brought.
Okay. Good. So let's move to the second part, because we've mapped the challenges, and let's now dig deeper in how the board can turn the reflection into real action. And Steven, you often work with boards, and then you introduce a very simple but powerful framework of the 4 questions. Could you tell us what the questions are?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And it's a bit like big blocks. So only 4 questions, so easy to understand. It's indeed based on my work with boards, but also I already made a reference to the fact that I'm currently writing a little book on this topic, and those 4 questions are somewhat the conclusion of the book. So the questions need to be seen as what are the key governance questions that a board member should ask to have more reasonable assurance that in the end technology works in line with the strategy and that the business risks are being mitigated or are in control. Let me first say the questions and then briefly expand. The 4 questions are easy to understand. It is, are we doing the right things? Are we doing them the right way? Are we getting them done well? And are we getting the benefits? And these are the 4 questions. So the first question, are we doing the right things? That's like the strategic question. How do you know as a board member that when you invest in digital technology, that you do these investments in line with your business strategy? That's the first one. Second one, are you doing them the right way? That's more like we would call it the architecture question. How do you know that those digital initiatives and investments are in line with your, I would call it, business operating model? For example, you go towards more standardized business processes or more integration of your business processes or more integration and standardization of your data. And Daniel, you referred to the data. Well, then it implies that all your technology investments should support and enable these business choices that you made. Yeah? The third question is, are you getting them done well? Which means in those digital transformation journeys, they are quite complex. Typically, IT projects have the reputation of always being too late, too little, too expensive. So do you have the capacity, the expertise available at the right moment in the right time to deliver those transformation journeys? That's 3. And then 4, maybe the most important one in my viewpoint, how do you know that in the end you will get the benefits? Yeah? We talked about the fashionista strategy and the IT black hole. A lot of money is spent on technology, but you need to make sure that in the end you get the benefit. And the first practice there, to answer your question, would be, well, talk about the benefits. Not just invest in AI, but invest in the business KPI that you would like to achieve through AI.
Yeah. And in your opinion, which of these 4 questions is the most difficult for boards to answer?
They're all very difficult, but I think the latter one is the most important one because you need to get the benefits. Yeah? And my experience is that the capacity to articulate the role of technology in the business strategy and the role of technology towards a business KPI, I see many colleagues struggling with that. Yeah.
And at Komatsu, do you use those questions or would you be able to introduce them, this way of thinking?
The book hasn't been released yet, so...
We'll plug the book
I'll give you a signed copy.
Yes, perfect. No, but the questions are indeed right. Now, what we do, we created a kind of a value framework to assess the projects or the initiatives that are being raised by the business. The 3 points are actually return on investment, necessity, and the soft benefits. And this is how we draw a framework on identifying on the technology-driven projects which we should do, yes or no, to evaluate them if they have a real return on investment. Because what we see now, we talked about regulations, what we see now is also that a lot of projects are now done out of necessity. DORA, NIS2, GDPR. Yeah. So we have a lot of regulations coming our way and a lot of projects, business projects or IT projects, which we need to do currently are not really, there is no real return on investment. There's more necessity
for a license to operate.
Yes. For a license, a compliance obligation and that's a bit of a struggle.
And have you ever reconsidered a decision or a project looking at your value framework, or if you had the 4 questions of Steven, would you have done something different in the past?
Yes, I think we would have. Yes.
No concrete examples come to mind?
No, not immediately. No, but I think we would have. I think we would have revisited a few of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Danielle, so the 4 questions, they're not published yet, but do you see other organizations using the same framework? Are they struggling in the same way and looking at it?
If you hear them like that, then they're very logical.
Yeah, of course.
But I have no idea
big
what happens
in
all these boardrooms. But I think the baseline is that in 2 little boardrooms, digital is not discussed enough. So before you can ask the questions, you need to be convinced that it is important. And it's not a one-time shot. Like one of the questions was, do you need somebody between CIO and board to bring the presentation? It's not just a one presentation. What I hear as well is you have the presentation and you need to decide with your board what do they need to know every quarter or every year. And it does not always need to be a formal presentation. There can be some reporting with the key indicators, for example, that you show every quarter or so. That's one thing. And what I hear more and more, because digital is now so wide, is that people say, why aren't you going to talk to one of the board members who has extra questions or explain a little bit?
In a one-on-one setting.
In a one-on-one, yeah. That was new. That was new to me. because that is something now I hear more and more. And also that boards invite people, not only the CIO or the CISO or the CFO, but we want to know, let's say, about building strategy on AI. Why don't we invite somebody to have a kind of brainstorming message or discussion to see we don't always have to reinvent the wheel.
A digital expert, for example.
It can be, depends on the topic, of course, but why not?
But what would your advice be if you want IT to be a fixed item on the agenda?
I think it should be.
It should be, but how do you convince the board?
Well, we're discussing all the important topics. If you see, let's take the example of what happened a couple of weeks ago with 9 airports. These airports were not attacked. It was their supply chain, their software. Every day there is something in the news. AI is all over the place. The compliance, what Tim just mentioned, it's a big issue for every company. When we ask our members, it's 55% that says compliance is now really a big burden for us, and you need to do it because it's in the law. But it really conflicts with all the new projects, the innovation, the operational stuff. It's really a big challenge these days.
I think to your question, what could convince the board or the chairman or woman of the board, it's a business strategy question. And so if the board gets a view on what is our business strategy and what's the role of technology in that business strategy, that insight, that intelligence would make the board have it on the agenda, technology. Of course, we have to, be a bit prudent here as well. There are organizations and industries where technology indeed is maybe just a supporting factor. If you are a very traditional bricks and mortar organization, then maybe indeed technology is just a supporting element in your strategy. You even don't maybe need a CIO to keep the lights on in technology. So we have to be a bit prudent that always IT should be in the board. I think it depends on the strategy. So the board needs to be able to articulate the strategy, the role of technology in the strategy, and depending on that insight, change the way they govern technology.
Yeah.
That's, I think...
the word compliance has been mentioned, Tim. So, Danielle, you say that many CIOs say that compliance is consuming too much of their resources. I think in your survey, 55% say it's even a real burden. Then that's not naturally difficult, but it needs to be tackled. How should we give it?
Several things. So it's a given. You need to comply to the law. At the European level, we work very closely together with the CIO associations from France, Germany, and the Netherlands. We have discussions with the Commission on simplification. It's not only us. There's a lot of parties now asking for simplification. And what we absolutely would like to have at the Belgium level and at the European level is that new legislation like the AI Act and the Data Act and whatever, that they come with implementation guidelines so that not every company needs to interpret the legal text. So should we do it like this? Should we do it like that? But that it comes with implementation. If you do it like this, it needs to be translated in digital systems. So there's an enormous scale effect that is possible. But we are now where we are, and it's really going very far that even if you have, for example, a cyber incident, and you need to report to the Center for Cybersecurity and also to the Privacy Commission, the DPA, it needs to be in a different way for the same incident. So there's a lot of opportunities there to make it better.
Do you support the approach?
Absolutely. I think you would concur that it does indeed take a lot of resources. So yes, I fully concur. At the same time, I would like to add that having technology on the board because of compliancy is a very reactive approach. And I think part of the conversation is that the board should be strategically, proactively engaged in the conversation because of the impact of technology on the business strategy. So there is something good about the fact that compliance brings technology to the board, but at the same time, it's not that good because it's a reactive approach.
But we cannot avoid it.
You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to do it. I know.
And it takes away the resources of innovation on other fronts. This is the big burden which lies with all the companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you see that struggle also at Komatsu.
Definitely.
Are there any ways in which you would like to change that?
like Danielle mentioned, I think simplification. I think simplification is key here. There are a lot of rules, and every company now has to figure it out. I think we're also in unexplored territory. Yes, we all have to figure it out ourselves. And if there would be a detailed implementation plan or an approach that could really benefit to certain companies, yes.
Yeah, harmonization in the different European countries.
Okay.
Yeah. And although we see that high regulatory environment impacting technology, if you look at corporate governance codes in Belgium or in Europe or worldwide, a lot of corporate governance codes still do not mention anything about the importance of technology, which is also counterintuitive, because you would expect, again, that boards pick up accountability on finance, legal, accounting, and so on, and compliance. But technology is often not yet referenced in corporate governance boards. So in terms of influencing policymakers, I think it would also be good that our policymakers and the corporate governance codes also embrace digital leadership in the corporate governance code.
You also say you get the IT you deserve. Maybe that's the title of your book.
Yeah, it would be a good title, I think. Yeah.
But could you explain it?
Well, I think it's a kind of a summary of our conversation. I think boards cannot abdicate decision making on technology anymore. So if you abdicate the decision making, you push it back to technology, you don't know what will be happening, and you get, it's like, you will get something back, but you don't know what you get back. So you get the IT you deserve implies that if you don't manage the asset, you cannot expect that the asset brings to you what you wanted because you did not manage it. So you cannot abdicate decision making anymore.
Danielle, you fully agree?
Yes, and I really would like to stress again the point that Steven already mentioned, the importance of data within companies. Because it's not about the IT for the IT, it's about what do we do with our data, how do we protect them, what benefits can we make out of them. And if you get that message, then I think it's very clear what companies should do.
Yeah, you say it's a valuable asset, but also the biggest blind spot in organizations, the data.
I'm really sometimes very surprised about the reactions we get on data strategy, like you need to have good data, but the quality of data is sometimes not so good. Sometimes companies do not know what kind of data they all have, and it's now going very, very fast because it's not only having insights on your own data, but we are now ahead of an era where data sharing between different parties is now coming up. And so the maturity there is not there at all. No. It's very complicated because I have some companies coming to us like, we had a very nice project. We talked to an AI startup, had a very nice improvement of our fabrication process. And we had a lot of discussion. But what we did not expect is that startup was then using all our insights to sell software to our competitors. And that's just an example, but there are accidents waiting to happen right now, but data and data sharing are now very, very big concerns, or should be in every organization.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move to some questions from the audience, because we received quite some questions. First one, how can executive enthusiasm surrounding AI be effectively managed? Should organizations implement programs that help leaders recognize the current limitations of AI and the risks of overestimating its maturity, particularly regarding the automation of routine tasks? So taps into what we were talking about, AI. Who has the enthusiasm to answer?
I think you cannot block certain companies take the policy and they completely block AI. I don't think you can block, or do you think you cannot think the current environment without AI? It's there, it's we better embrace it than to try to stop it. So we cannot. And I think education, that's what we see. Education of the people, like Danielle also mentioned, the security awareness, all those training programs. I think that's what we see within Komatsu, is that it brings a benefit towards the people. Make them aware of the risks which are linked to AI.
So at your company, there's no restrictions you can...
No, there is a restriction. We don't completely block it. There's a restriction, but we educate the people on what they are allowed to do. And we also educate them on what the potential risks are if they go beyond that boundary.
Because part of AI is also experimenting with things, but if it's blocked, it's impossible to experiment with it. So maybe that could block innovation and then
Yes,
within
but
a company as well.
then I think it's for the IT department to set up or to work together with the business counterpart to set up a safe environment where
a sandbox where it's possible.
where those experiments can happen in a safe and a guided way without the risk, like that you lose data.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that quite a lot of companies just don't have a policy on the use of AI. They just ignore it. So that's very strange because if you say, okay, very enthusiastic employees using, well, I'm not going to call names, but certain tools and then names of clients and lots of sensitive data is just being disclosed without people even be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some AI literacy, if you talk about educating people, the AI literacy is required. I think many people just play with the tools without really understanding the impact.
There's a specific question for you, Steven, because it taps into your 4 questions. How do you know you'll get the benefits in the end? What horizon do you maximum allow to define in the end? Because it's short-term, long-term.
Yeah.
When are you sure?
Yeah, it's a very good question because it's easily said you have to know what the benefit is, but the benefit coming out of technology typically is vague. It can be sometimes tangible or intangible. Sometimes it's more to the market. Sometimes it's more internal. Sometimes you can measure it in euros. Sometimes you can't measure it in euros. So it's not always that easy to measure it in the first place. And then the question is very to the point. There is always a time delay. If you realize a specific investment in technology, for example, you implement a new customer relationship management system, the benefits of that are of course not achieved when the new system is in place, because then you just have a working system. The benefits are achieved when the marketing and sales people who use the platform to create more leads and to convert the leads into sales and in the end to more profit. So the question is, when do you get that benefit? That's very good question. Difficult. So I think the way to approach that would be that you try to aim towards, okay, my end goal is that sales will go up with 10%, but that you also try to define the intermediate benefits in that journey. That is, okay, after 6 months we want to be there, after 12 months we want to be there, so that you not only target, okay, the end benefit will be in 2 years from now and that will be that KPI, but that you also try to set some intermediate benefits, which can also be very intangible things like the culture is changing of the company, the mindset is changing. Yeah? We have better internal communication so that you see a journey towards that end benefit.
Yeah, and maybe also if you have the agility then to maybe react if you see intermediary steps not aligning with what you expected.
If you see that the intermediate benefits are not there, then you can change course of action. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, next question. How do you deal with the need for agility and a fast pace of change when your board still operates with a more waterfall style, 3-year ICT planning cycle? And can the 4 questions help to bridge that gap? Yeah, that's
Steven just.
It's already answered that question. Yeah. So we move to the next one. Can multi-generational collaboration in the board support composition of the board based on age? So should we?
I have some research on that, if I may. So it's a typical.
What is the medium age of board members? Is there?
I think it's quite old. But
okay, because I think that's the question. Okay, the older section. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I think we have to be a bit careful here. There is some research on this, and the research says that there is no explanation or no research that says that age of board members explain why they are more or less involved in the technology conversation, which implies that there are, of course, very, let's call it experienced board members, not old, but experienced board members that are super innovative in this domain. And at the same time, you have youngsters, new generation people who can play with their iPad and iPhone. Yeah. But this is not what we are talking about here. So age of board members is not a predictor here. I did already mention age of organizations is. So we have also looked at the research. Organizations that are younger than 10 years typically have less challenges here. Organizations that are out there for more than 20 years typically have much more issues here. But age of board members, I think it's good always to have in the board a good balance of generations at all times.
Is there an advice from Baltic?
No, it's something we do not really work on. But I do see that lots of companies are setting up some more ethical boards or boards on the impact of projects, and where you see that they absolutely want there a very diverse public involving different companies. Profile, sorry.
Yeah, so diversity is key. It shouldn't be really related to age. Next question. What are common warning signs that IT governance isn't working as it should?
Frustration, I presume.
Yeah.
As always. Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
you're best placed to see where frustration and other signs
I think
come up.
Yes, a common warning sign is then I think a common from our perspective, when you see that business is trying to bypass IT, yes, that's a clear indication for us that there is a frustration because we should work together. If they try to avoid you and work around you, that's a clear indication that you as an IT department are trying to do certain things wrong or try to handle certain things in an incorrect way. So I think that's for me one of the first side where I say if I see this within a company or within our company, it's a clear sign from, trying to understand why do they try to do it, and then come up with an action plan on how to mitigate it. Because I think it's valuable feedback you can also get there from the business, asking from why do you take that approach, and try to understand and mitigate and change your processes.
You
I think that's a good
handle a
example.
lot of boards and organizations.
I think that's a very good symptom. But another one would be a major investment that goes completely wrong.
Okay.
That you have a big enterprise resource planning transformation program or an AI investment or whatever type of investment, and it goes completely wrong. The money is burned and the benefits are not achieved. That also typically or could raise board attention. We spent $1 million and what's happening now? So that means that something went wrong in your governing model.
Yeah.
But then it's too late.
But that is too late. Yeah. I know.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. How can organizations shift from seeing IT as a cost to seeing it as a source of value?
By not only in the boards talk about the risks and that's important in the compliance, but also talk about the benefits, about the opportunities. As we said before, digital is everywhere now, so it should be much more than just a cost.
And could it also be that the CIO is not linked to the finance department? Where should it be structured in an organization?
Well, I think that's a symptom of how people look to IT.
Yeah.
But if I see all the CIOs talking to all those business people and so on, and they really work for the same purpose.
Yeah.
And then it's not just the costs, and it's also the opportunities. How can we make our company stronger? The data insights can offer new services, new services to your customers, and so on.
Because
but the
do you have
reporting
some?
line does say something. It is at this moment about 20% of CIOs report to CFOs. If you have that governing structure, because that for me is a governing structure, then the organization says about technology is a cost, right? Because it reports into the CFO. So it means that the way you will manage technology is it should reduce costs. And that's what you do with the cost center in the end.
Is it the case at Komatsu? Where is it situated?
It's a bit complex in our case because how shall I say it? The CIO, we don't have a CIO for the moment. It's a general manager, European ICT. And he's not part of the board. He's sitting in the boardroom, let's say, or to give advice, but I don't think.
And he reports to
the CFO and CEO.
Okay.
So
still.
Yes, I think there is some value in that IT is seen as a
changed.
cost. Yes, it can be. There is room for improvement. Let's say.
Okay. So let's head to the takeaways before we close. Let's take a moment to reflect on all the insights that emerged from our conversation. Firstly, technology belongs in the boardroom. You can't discuss strategy, risk, or innovation without including digital. Secondly, good governance starts with 4 key questions. Are we doing the right things? Are we doing them the right way? Are we getting them done well? And are we getting the benefits? And you can check the book of Steven when it airs. Thirdly, check where IT is structured within the organization. If it reports to finance, you're managing cost instead of value. Fourthly, alignment is everything. Strategy, governance, and technology, they must move in sync to create real impact. And lastly, yes, you get the IT you deserve. Boards that engage and ask the right questions, they get technology that truly delivers value. So make technology a fixed item on your governance agenda. So we're at the end. Thank you, Steven, Danielle, and Tim, for your insightful input and the conversation. We made one thing crystal clear today. IT governance is not about technology, it's about leadership. And the organizations that will thrive tomorrow are those whose boards treat technology as a real strategy a driver of strategy, not as merely a cost to control. To everyone watching, you'll receive the recording of this webinar very soon, along with extra materials to share with your teams. And if you'd like to explore this topic further, check out the executive programs on leadership, governance, and digital transformation at Antwerp Management School. Stay curious, stay critical, keep asking the right questions. I'm sure we already helped you on your way with the 4 questions of today. See you at the next AMS Impact webinar.